Hi, folks. Welcome to another episode of Film Study. This is Ken McCusick, and we're back for part two of the cornerback countdown for the 2025 NFL Draft. Joining me for it is Coach DC of all 22 films. Coach, how you doing?
Doing good, man. I'm looking forward to this one. Part one was, a lot of fun, just comparing evaluations, number one, but number two, the two distinct styles, or at least what you forward here, some statistics, analytics, or metrics or whatever, compared to what I do, which is just film based. It's a lot of fun. I hope we do this every year about corners, but I recognize some years maybe you want, a different person to do a different position, but it's unintentional or organic in the fact that we don't overlap what we're focusing on
Mhm.
for this video. I appreciate it because sometimes you say something and it lines up with the film that I watched, or sometimes it's different, and that's a good thing too because you handle it professionally and I try to too. So it's a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to part two.
All right. Appreciate it, Coach. And I hope people go back and listen to part one first because you get a couple of things. First of all, a high level look at 6 metrics that I've collected for every corner, and I'll move through those again. I will just tell you what the median is in these 6 categories. So we have it as kind of a starting point. Snaps per coverage target, 7.1 is the median of 300 plus cornerback snaps. Yards per target is 6.9. So that's average, if you want to call it. It's really median. Yak per reception is 4.2. Missed tackle rate is 13.9. That'll come up a lot. 13.9% is right there in the middle of where all cornerbacks are. Opposition passer rating is 82.1. So college quarterbacks are not as good. That would certainly be a bad NFL rating. And coverage snaps per penalty is 142.7 is average. So I've just rounded to even numbers in each case. We'll have those metrics for each of the corners we discussed in this show. Let's talk about who you took in the 10 through 7 spots in part one.
You just want me to go 10 through 7
Yeah,
total?
go ahead. Yeah.
So my 10 was Quincy Riley from Louisville, nickel/outside corner. Thomas, I'll let you do the first name, from Florida State, would be 9. Amos was 8. And then Darian Porter was 7. Realistically, Darian Porter probably belongs, a little bit higher or sooner on the board, if you will, than number 7. So that was my 10 through 7.
All right, my 10 through 7, Noel Williams of Cal, who has had 7 interceptions this last year. Benjamin Morrison of Notre Dame. Azarie Thomas of Florida State.
There you go.
And Siobhan Revel of East Carolina, who's got a significant injury concern. A lot of people do have higher on their boards. So we'll start off with number 6. Your number 6 guy, I think, is still unreported on at this point.
That's correct. Maxwell Hairston from Kentucky. First of all, I was a little shocked by the 4.28. Not that I didn't think he was fast, but 4.28, really sticks out. Anything 4.2 is awesome. 6 career interceptions. The RAS score really high for being 21 years old, 9.63. I think that was adjusted. He's the guy that, for me, the 2023 film really sticks out. 2024 film is different. I don't know what the metrics look like. Like I said in the lead in here for part 2, I don't have that information. You have it, and so you read it out. So it's good. 2023 film looked like one of the best corners in college football. 2024 didn't look the same to me. He's the guy I think that has the highest ceiling in zone awareness and ball skills, along with the burst, because he's got the awareness to kind of hang out between 2 routes, essentially whatever the route combination is, flood concept, smash, whatever it is. Maxwell Harrison seems to be the guy who can be a little bit closer to this route than maybe he should be, but he's got and so he's taking that away. But he's also got the burst to break on that other route, so you don't want to throw that. And then along with that, the ability to go get the football. So that burst and the ball skills really just multiplies the level of danger for the quarterback to deal with him. But, I recognize he's small. He's 5'11", 183. So from a Ravens standpoint, which is what, you do with your list, he may not be as high on the Ravens board, number 1. Number 2, I'm not saying he can't play man, but his zone coverage ability really stuck out to me compared to the rest of this draft. I thought that he was a guy who showed immense confidence. The way he plays the game, he looks like, I can't remember how much of a basketball guy you are, but he looks like a guy who thinks he's the best player on the court. And my friends and I used to joke, and so maybe you won't get this reference, but Eddie House, a guy that played in the NFL for years, the NBA for years, and was like a seventh man, second guy off the bench. And when he came in the game, if you ever saw him live, I saw him live 3 times. You're like, he thinks he's the best player on the court. That's what Maxwell Hairston is. And so that kind of swagger, you want that in your DB group. I know, that's common knowledge, but Kentucky seemed to be a better defensive team when he was on the field. Immense confidence. I really like his game, and I think that maybe I like him more than others do. But the ability to turn the football over and then take it back to the house is you really can't quantify how much that impacts an offense and how much that, let's say you get a pick six in the second quarter, and the coach calls a similar concept to Hairston's side of the field next possession, or the third quarter or the fourth quarter. How willing are you as a quarterback to go back over there after a guy's already burned you? He doesn't have the same size and he's way faster, but he almost reminds me of Marcus Peters from the standpoint of you go over there, the potential danger that you're dealing with is a different level. And again, we got some great corners to talk about here at the end. Travis Hunter, Will Johnson, among others. So they're clearly better than him. But the 2023 film that he showed reached a height that I thought everyone else did not reach. It was a very, very short period of time. I think if he had been drafted after 2023, he'd be ranked higher on most people's boards, including my own.
Yeah, totally agree with that comment, by the way. If he's a guy who, if let's see, was he only in his third year anyway? Yeah, 3 years at Kentucky. If he's 21 now, he probably
21.
wasn't eligible to go into the NFL then last year. But yeah, it would have been a much better deal for him. Everything was worse in only 142 coverage snaps this last year, including 11.9 yards per target, where he was 6.5 the previous year, which is a little above average, honestly. But his missed tackle rate went from 8.2% in 23 to 27.3%. We watched Marcus Williams work through his shoulder injuries and saw how it affected his tackling in 23 in particular, coming off the 22 year. More 24 is terrible in every respect, but 23 was really a bad tackling year for him. Hairston had that shoulder injury. It required hospitalization. It took away
this year.
In 24.
This year, right.
But that's when he had the bad missed tackle rate, is what I'm saying. It's 27.3% missed tackle rate this year. And that took away weeks 5 to 11. He did come back and he finished the season, but I think he may have been playing with some shoulder problems that might have impacted his tackling, or maybe it's just small sample size. That could be it too. But is the other problem he has is he's a little bit grabby at the top of the stem, and I do love him because he's a good change of direction guy. I think he could be a good slot corner, even though I wouldn't start him there. I'd try and make him work on the outside first, but he's a guy who gets to the stop of the stem, may make a mistake, realize he's beaten, gets grabby, and that's resulted in a fairly high number of penalties. He's 108 last year, 1 every 71 this year. So
I figured.
He's only had 591 total college snaps, so he's right there with about 60% more play than Darian Porter, which is not much. I looked at where he got beat this season because he didn't get beat often. He allowed a 36-yard catch to Michael Smith of South Carolina on a wheel route where he blew the coverage on the left sideline. It was pre-injury. There's not really any excuse for it. He just wasn't in the right place to cover that route. Then he allowed a 51-yard one-handed grab to Chris Bell. It was the longest play of the season down the left sideline. It was in week 14, so it's post-injury. But what I'd say about it is this was a case where the quarterback threw it where nobody else could get it, and Bell made a catch on it with one hand that you just have to throw your hands up and say it wasn't really Hairston's fault on that play. And it didn't look like PFF gave him a downgrade on that play either from looking at the total coverage grade. So they're mostly saying great play by Bell on that play, and I would agree with that evaluation. For the Ravens, he's potentially a first-round pick, definitely. But me personally, even though I think he's past his injury flags, he came back from the injury, played the end of the season.
Yeah.
Even though he didn't play as well, I wouldn't anticipate that that's going to impact his 25 season. I still think he's probably too rich at 27, and he will be gone by 59. I think those are the goalposts where he's picked, and he's part of this. Sand runs through our fingers every year in terms of great players in the second round. The Ravens just don't have a reasonable chance to get. He's probably in that group.
Totally agree. Another example of a guy that you would like to pick, but you're not going to get an opportunity to do so because it's a little too soon at 27. And so many times, pretty much every year, we talk about the Ravens drafting late in the first round, how that impacts who we can take. In another deep draft, this one, I mean,
Mhm.
I don't know that has as big of an impact as drafting late in the second round does. There's a larger differential, I think, from being able to pick mid second round, early second round to late compared to some of the first, unless we were picking in the top 8, right, which we never want to do. So I think I agree. Hairston not going to be there. He's a guy that I could see in the right system his rookie year, making some plays. Having 3 or 4 interceptions, the ball skills, the burst, closing distance, ability to play zone and recognize route combinations. I hope he comes into the league and plays really well. I don't think it's going to be in Baltimore though, because like you said, I don't think he fits for where we're drafting at. Certainly, I wouldn't advocate for the Ravens to take him at 27. It wouldn't surprise me if some other team does get him late first round.
Okay, got a hypothetical for you because I'm agreeing with you in the shallow grade off this year of talent, particularly in round 2. Would the Ravens have 27 and 59? If they wanted to trade for the same JJ value, and admittedly this would be giving up a 5th round option on somebody, would you rather have picks 42 and 49, which have the same 990 JJ points, or would you rather have 27 and 59?
Off the top of my head, I would say yes for the 240s picks, but
Okay.
only if we didn't have to move off of anything earlier,
That we
you
really
know,
wanted. Yeah.
that we really wanted. So my answer would be, I guess, yes and no at the same time. It's a cop out, I guess, but it would depend on what we had to give up beyond 93 or how that impacted 93 or 91, whatever we're at there. Forgive me if I'm wrong. But and it's a cool question to ask. Number one. Number two, I think it gets to the point of there's going to be some really good football players available at 45, 50,
Hmm.
55 who unfortunately may not be there at 59. And again, that speaks to what I mentioned a little while ago, that it really impacts us drafting late in the second round in a severe manner, very similar to the way that it does in the first.
Okay, so I had Hairston at number 4. I liked him also. I think basically one of the big things is he doesn't have a lot of the injury flags that some of the other guys did. I had him ahead of Trey Amos. My number 6 guy is next. He's Darian Porter, who we talked about in the first show. Absolutely love him, tremendous athlete. But we talked about him. Go back and listen to part 1 if you want to hear what we had to say about him. Who's your number 5 guy?
So Benjamin Morrison, who we've already covered, that was your 8,
My
9.
number 9 guy, yeah. So he is an injury flag as well. And again, go back to that first show if you want to hear about Ben Morrison. Number 5 guy for me was Trey Amos of Old Miss. Absolutely love him. Don't remember
Mhm.
where you had him. You brought him up, I think, in the first show, right?
Yeah, I had him at 8.
Hmm.
So we're in the range pretty much here. Together, and again, it's not organized at all. But all of those guys that you mentioned, I think, are worthy picks and similar to Hairston in that 27 is too soon for them, clearly, but 59 would be fantastic to get those guys. But with our concerns at safety, O line, and maybe
D
defensive
line.
tackle as
Yeah.
well, yeah, D line. We're in a little bit of a situation trying to address those things only through the draft. Fortunately, we got a Woozy or a Woozier at corner, which really, I think, re-sign Stanley opens up so much more freedom
Mhm.
for us in the first 3 picks. That was brilliant stuff, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah, it really was. It totally, need and value always compete in the draft. And they're opposite ends of the spectrum. You don't get both unless you get completely lucky that the guy you think is the highest value at your specific highest position of need happens to occur at the same exact point in the draft. And that's
Right,
very unusual. So need and value compete. If you want to get more value, you got to draft in positions that aren't need. If
right.
you want more need fulfilled, you usually have to give up value to do so. And the Ravens have done a great job of setting themselves up with no extreme needs such that they can take better value selections all the way through. Very Ravens setup to this draft.
It's a great opportunity, I think, to get talent at 27 59 or 42, 44, or 46, whatever. The Bears are the team that I'm looking at as I think they're at 51 and 53 or 50 and 52. They would be the team that I think may try to move back in to the first round. The clearly crazy one, if you don't want me to speculate, feel free to interrupt me or turn my mic off, is the one that it wouldn't surprise me if they called us is the Philadelphia Eagles, to move back up. And that would be the one that I would want because clearly we would get a first round pick in return.
Okay,
That would be the
so
team.
we get 32 and something else. You're saying for 27, yeah,
Right, exactly. That would be the team that I would want because it's not the Chiefs, it's not the Buffalo Bills, and we would get a first round pick in return. But the Bears
we get
or
the
the
last pick of round 3
right,
also. So it'd be those 2 picks we get for 27, and
right,
we might have to throw back in something like a 6th round pick to
exactly.
even it
The
up. Yeah.
Seahawks or the Bears are the other team that I would look at as possible options for the Ravens to trade back. But both of those, I believe, are right around the 50s. I'm wrong, actually, with the Bears. I think they're 39 and 40 or 39 and 41. The Seahawks are the ones that are 50 and 52. And so those are the teams that, for me, trade back value wise, it wouldn't surprise me if the option was there when we do go to pick at 27, depending on the player that is available. None of these guys that we're talking about currently are ones that I think the Ravens are going to take at 27. We're getting ready to move into that area, I think, of the quality of corners that might actually be selected at 27 or in that range.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right about that. So number 4 guy, have you talked about your number 4 guy yet?
Savon or Siobhan Revel.
Okay, and I had Max Hairston, so that our 4 picks have been taken care of. So we've only got 3 cornerbacks. If they're
We got
not the
the same three
same 3
guys.
cornerbacks, I'd be very surprised. Who's your number 3 guy?
Barron from Texas. And I do have some wonder about whether he's going to be a nickel or an outside corner. To me, it looked like he slimmed down a little bit in 2024, but it could have been the jersey as well. He went from 23 to 7. So the single digit jersey thing is a real factor. It makes guys look a little bit more sleek. 8 interceptions, 21 TFLs in his career, 5'11, 194, 439, 40 was a little bit surprising to me. He doesn't look slow. I don't mean that at all. He looks like a guy who has great awareness and great anticipation and makes plays, but he didn't look like a guy that was a 4-3 corner to me. And so, what does that mean? It doesn't mean anything negative. It just means that I think he understands the game of football and he understands the routes that flow from, formation, personnel, situation. I think he's got really good zone instincts. To me, he's the guy in this draft who, well, I'm not even talking about Travis Hunter. Okay, so he's an alien, but compared to the rest of the corners, Barron is the guy who I think has the highest level of zone instincts, other than Hairston, who you guys just heard me talk about. I think Barron's got some versatility that I hesitate to say Marlon Humphrey because there's so much reactions, positive or negative, that Ravens fans have to him, which I think is crazy if you don't recognize how good he is. But point is, Barron could theoretically play outside corner on one snap and move to nickel corner on the very next snap. I do think he's gone well before 27. It wouldn't surprise me at all if the Seahawks took him at 18. Of course, the Seahawks have their own outside corner / nickel in Devon Witherspoon, who's an unbelievable football player. I like his game. I think he's smart, aware, very quick, and experienced. And I think that, like I said, he's gone before the Ravens even make our first selection. The thing to note is he's got great ball skills, and he's a really fun player to watch, in my opinion. I enjoyed watching the Texas film, and I'm not a Texas fan. I don't get to watch much college football, but they're not one of the teams that I really root for. But I had fun watching him and Makuba at the same time.
Safety, sure. He's outstanding talent there. Love Jahdae Barron, sorry. Length challenge cornerback. He's played some slot, he's played some outside, and he's played some safety, which is interesting because a lot of people are already mocking him as moving to safety as a rookie. I think that's premature. He'll make more money at corner. I think he'll want to stay there as long as he can. And I think it makes sense. But the zone instincts, I mean, you're right on the money about that. And that is something that a 439 safety who has great instincts and can see the field, read the quarterback, that's a devastating weapon. A
Yep.
devastating weapon. I mean, it's Troy Polamalu was not that fast, and he's a guy who certainly is a outstanding potential weapon there. His athletic testing otherwise is non-existent. He did have poor jumps, but he had 2024 coverage metrics were very good. 8.0 snaps per target, which is good. 4.2 yards per target, which is extremely good. Yak per reception was 3.5, a little bit better than average. Missed tackle rate of 9.5% is about 70% of the median rate. His opposition passer rating was 34.2, which is better than every passing complete, folks. So 39.6 is every passing complete. 34.2 is Jahdae Barron, who gives up 0 touchdowns and has 5 interceptions against his targets on the year. Coverage snaps per penalty, 271. So rarely penalized as well. He might have had 2 this last year. He allowed 37 catches the whole year. Only 3 of those, 3 out of 37, went for 10 plus yards. And, I'm trying to find plays where he messed up. And I mean, just Charnetti. He did allow a 43-yard bomb to Berrien Brown. It was a 38 plus 5 where Barron stuttered. Brown actually stuttered for a moment and caused Barron to kind of peek into the backfield, and then all of a sudden he was outrun and
it's like a sluggo. What team was that? What team was that?
Sluggo. Oh, you're right. Sluggo was the route.
What team was that?
I don't have the opponent.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. It's easy to find. I could tell you in a minute. I just have to look it up.
I'm looking
for a second. But very natural zone defender. He gambles very well. It's traits you exactly want in a safety. I never really saw him to see whether he was a loose bracket type safety, constantly playing for the overthrow, but it wouldn't surprise me. And I didn't do the thing I normally do where I go through and look at every interception and see how they were different. He does not have ideal length for press coverage. So if you want him out there, I mean, he'll be out there obviously on the field on third downs. He wouldn't be a guy who disrupts the route right at the line of scrimmage.
Absolutely.
He has to fight otherwise to make that play. Tackles well enough to move to safety if that's where he's needed. For the Ravens, he's likely to be on long before they pick. I would say he probably goes in the top 10, but we'll see how that works out. He'd be another very versatile addition. The Ravens have a lot of versatile players, and I'd want him to just play safety, or I'd want him to just play corner, one or the other. Be done with the decision, make the best judgment you can, and don't put another player into limbo. They've already got 3 guys in Hamilton, Washington, and Humphrey that play multiple positions, and they're already having trouble figuring how to move that parking lot puzzle around. So I think if you're lucky enough to get Jahdae Barron, I don't think they'd pass him up if you came to them at 27. Then you put him probably at right corner and forget about him.
Go ahead. Sorry, Ken. Go ahead.
I'm good. That's pretty much the whole evaluation.
I mean, I agree and disagree. I think the value that, yes, you would like to pick him at 27 and say, yeah, we are set. We've got Kyle Hamilton. We're obviously going to re-sign. We've got Nate Wiggins. Marlon Humphrey, I think, is on board for another year, but I could be wrong there. And then this guy is a good player. But the value that Jahdae Barron would bring in a trade back situation would be interesting if he's there at 27.
Oh, okay.
Like you said, I just don't see him being there. I don't. Even the Seahawks at 18, is close. Is a really good football player, professional level. I found myself watching Texas and him and Makuba and thinking, how in the heck did they lose to Georgia? It's not that I'm an anti-Georgia guy. They certainly got a tremendous amount of talent, but I'm not a Carson Beck fan, and I'm not a huge fan of their backup and their offensive system in the first place since Todd Monken has left. And I'm thinking, how did they lose? Because they got so much talent on that team, and Barron was the spearhead. He was right there at the forefront of everything that they did. Great football player. I expect him to succeed from day one in the NFL.
All right. So Barron was your guy or my guy that you had Barron at number 3, right?
We got the same guys in order, no doubt. Go ahead.
No, we do, but I didn't. I had Jahdae Barron at number 2. So
I had him at 3.
I'll go with the number 3 guy, who's probably your number 2, and I get the first evaluation on that. And that's Will Johnson. I assume he is. I assume you had Hunter at number 1, but the Michigan corner, big, thick cornerback at 6'2", 194, below average length That's where he gets some of his thickness from, probably. But exceptional speed. There is a set of injuries that has plagued his last 2 years at Michigan that we have to talk about. I'm hoping he's by most of this, and we'll know on 4/14 when he does a separate workout. So that's 4 days from when we're recording this. The 439 other 40, obviously that had to come in 23 or something. He didn't have any other testing because he didn't participate in the combine this year, has this workout coming up. Coverage metrics were not particularly great in 2024 in 182 snaps, which is not nothing, but 7.0 snaps per coverage targets per coverage target, 7.5 yards per target, 3.1 yak per reception is pretty good. A 20.8% missed tackle rate, which is obviously not good. Opposition passer rating was still only 52.6. And a penalty every 91 snaps is not good. Much better player in 23. In 24, he was plagued by a turf toe injury that caused him finally to be shut down for the year in the second half. He tried to play through it, and he wasn't playing particularly well, and they finally agreed to shut him down. Also did not participate in the combine. And then while practicing for a pro day, he got injured and got a hammy injury. So he deferred his personal pro day until April 14th. Still coming up. And by the way, there is an enormous observational point there in terms of exactly where he is, because he's got to be ready to play this season. Hamstring injuries happen every year in camp, obviously 3 to 4 week injuries if they're not too severe. So hopefully he's in that camp. I don't think he should have problems again with turf toe. And he probably should have some specialized shoes and some other things that'll help him get by it. He did undergo knee surgery in 2023, missed the first 3 games of the season. I assume that was an arthroscopic procedure. Don't know anything more about details about it. Rare combination of size to play press man and the ball skills to break up as a predator on the back end of zone defenses. Absolutely loved him in that respect. He has 9 interceptions and only 2 TDs allowed in his college career. So that was a big positive. He allowed just one player play longer than 18 yards in 2024. That was in the opener versus Fresno State. And he gave up 3 plays of 30-plus yards in 23 when he allowed a passer rating of just 30.9 for the season. So he's consistently been at or near the top of the coverage metrics. If you can get by the injury flags, I think you can make a case for him being the very best cornerback in the class. And I say that with all love for Travis Hunter that I have, is that Hunter is a great player. The receiving skill is very valuable. We'll get to that, I'm sure. But I think you can make the case that Will Johnson is the number one if you want to. And I don't think there's any chance he drops to 27. If he does, it's related to injuries. The Ravens will have to evaluate, and I'm sure they'll be right there on 4/14 watching exactly what he does in his personal pro day.
Yeah, I mean, totally agree. Like, he's the best corner in the country if you stop time at the end of 2023.
Yeah.
He's, there's no doubt. His true freshman season, by the way, spectacular at Michigan. 2023, they won the national title. And in terms of the injury in 2023, he came back and played, I think, pretty much every snap after missing the first 3, or I think you said 3 games, or maybe 4. But in any case, it was such that he was able to come back super smooth. They trust him in space. And look, the reality is you have Mike McDonald leaves there after 21. The young guy takes over. I know the whole defensive mentor. That system works. How related is that system to the Ravens system? It's more than a cousin. I don't know if it's a twin brother, but it's something.
They can't get married in most states. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, exactly. So there you go. And I really like Will Johnson. I really do. I had to force myself to watch 2 extra games because I had already made up my mind after 2023 that I thought he was the best corner in the country. 2024 didn't match up there, but I think you even said it. Even though 2024 didn't reach the heights of what he had shown previously, he only his long reception allowed, I think you said, was 18, and I didn't know that until you said it. Very comfortable.
One play longer than 18 yards.
Okay, so very comfortable in space one-on-one. A+ or A++ ability to see the quarterback and the route at the same time. And so that's not just when he's targeted or when the ball is thrown to him. And so what I mean by that is there's times where you watch film and a player looks like they kind of give up on a route. But in reality, a guy like Will Johnson, sometimes it's because he's seeing the ball thrown to the other side. So he knows I don't have to defend this route here on my side. I can start to move in that direction. Or if it's something in the middle of the field and the ball's deflected, I can be there. And that's one of the things you talk about with young players, youth football or high school is just because it's not thrown to your side doesn't mean that we don't pursue. Ball gets deflected, you stand around, you buy a ticket. That's what we would call it. You're buying a ticket. You're not doing anything. When you buy a ticket, you're not going to make any plays because your ass is in the stands. And so you try to promote that. And Will Johnson is a guy that, to me, I thought played 2024, not like he was buying a ticket. I don't mean that, but he played 2024 like he was in fourth gear to me. That's actually on my PDF. So it's interesting that you say, or that you talked about the injury situation. My comparison to, and I said this in a video that I recorded last night, he reminds me of Derek Stingley his last year at LSU, in that it's not like he's playing poorly.
If you're looking for a better way to unwind, focus, or even get a good night's sleep, listen up. Let me tell you about Mood, the online cannabis company that's changing the game when it comes to functional gummies. They've crafted a whole line of federally legal THC blends designed to help with everything from stress to sleep to mental clarity and even some spicier needs if you're into that. Now, what makes Mood different? They go beyond just THC. They pair it with herbs and adaptogens to create targeted effects that you won't find in any other dispensary. And every gummy is made with pesticide-free, small farm American cannabis, so you're getting quality that you can trust. I've tried their sleep gummies, and let me tell you, it takes about 15 minutes, and I'm out cold, no grogginess, no weird side effects, getting some of the best sleep I've gotten in my life when I take one of these gummies. And if you need a mood boost, there are Epic Euphoria gummies, game changers. And right now, Mood is giving listeners 20% off their first order by using the promo code RAVENS at checkout. So head on over to mood.com, find the perfect gummy for whatever life throws your way, and don't forget to use the promo code RAVENS to save 20%.
And it's not like I'm saying he wasn't giving effort, but he looks like he's in fourth gear to me. It would not surprise me if 3 years from now or 4 years from now, Will Johnson is getting a contract similar to what Derek Stingley just got for the Houston Texans. I think he's that good. I think he has that much potential. Injuries, could that derail it? Sure. Because, the reality is, like you said, the film in 2024 did not reach the heights of 22, his freshman season, true freshman season, and then 2023. But this is a spectacular football player, two-time All-American. I think if someone said to me, "Hey, I think he's the number one corner in this draft," I wouldn't really argue with him. And I really, Travis Hunter to me is an alien, complete alien. That should tell you, whether you agree or disagree with a person who says Will Johnson is better, that should tell you how good he is, and that people would be willing to make that comparison.
Right. There are some contrarians out there who would believe it, but you're a very balanced evaluator. I'd like to think that of myself too. I'm not someone who wants to go out on a limb to say, a number one player sucks or this guy is better than the number one player. Sometimes the best baseball player is Babe Ruth, and that's just what you have to live with because it's the truth.
I think Will Johnson in this draft is a top 10 player. Mm-hmm. I think he should be taken in the top 10 picks.
Okay, so you would take him despite the concerns, and I got to see 414 before I'm going there.
Yeah, no problem. If he's there at 27 for me, I'm grabbing him unless things look really really bad from a medical standpoint. Just too much. I mean, I hate to say this, and my suspicion is you'll disagree with it. I think he could, if he's healthy and he shows up on day one in Baltimore, he might be the best outside corner we got.
Better than Wiggins.
I mean, it's possible. I don't know that, I believe one way or the other, but I think he's got that type of potential.
Yeah, I mean, he certainly would push Awuzie into a backup role pretty quickly, I think. But it would. Injuries tend to make give people opportunities no matter what. Here's the situation that I'd say: if 414, I don't want to lean too much on it. If he runs a 4.65 40, on
Right.
414. First of all, I don't think they'd let him run if they thought he was going to run that.
Exactly.
But if he does, my opinion of him has to change.
He'd be ill the night. He'd be quote ill the night before from food poisoning.
Yeah, or they just say he's not ready to do the workout. I mean, that's fine too.
Yeah.
But it would also, I think, lower his valuation.
It seems pretty obvious to me that 24 was impacted by the turf toe. That seems quite clear to me based upon how you described it with the dates and him being shut down, and then others, but myself included, have said it looked like he was playing in fourth gear. When you saw him play as Washington, I think in 23, and 3 times in that game, Washington was so perimeter horizontal based with Penix and even all the talent they had. Getting the ball out quick to the sidelines, and Will Johnson 3 different times was there to either make first contact on those perimeter screens or was coming in to finish someone off at the end of a play. And I don't mean cheap shots. Like I just mean legitimately coming in, and I didn't see those types of plays in 24. I didn't see him coming in to finish someone off. I saw him pulling up a little bit. Coaches don't really, I shouldn't say pulling up because that's a negative phrase for coaches, not finishing the play the last step and a half.
This may relate to it, or maybe exactly the thing you're talking about, but there's about 3 guys in this draft, and Will Johnson would be one of them. The other 2 are out of the top 10, by the way, but are guys who trigger downhill on wide receiver screen passes way too fast for the other guy who's supposed to be blocking. So the recognition is too good for the other guy supposed to be blocking to block without getting OPI, because they'll be blocking while the ball's in the air. They know they can't do that, and sometimes they do anyway, and it looks bad. But those guys, worth their weight in gold. Even they can be smaller guys, but they trigger downhill so quick. A bigger tight end or a flex big slot or whatever it might be who's out there waiting to make a block there can't do it because the ball hasn't gotten to the receiver yet.
Right. Yeah, he's a great player. We're in agreement here that top player in the draft. Hopefully he's healthy, and hopefully he doesn't end up in the AFC North.
Yeah, I'll go with that too, unless it's with the Ravens. All right. So your number one guy, my number one guy, the same. Start us off on Travis Hunter.
I mean, this is, I think this is ridiculous that you're talking about a guy that plays 111 snaps a game. And so you have these amazing plays that he's made as a receiver and a corner. But inside of that, or between those great plays, is consistent, high effort, physical output that shouldn't be there. If you're on your 50th or 55th snap in the first half, you shouldn't be able to be as consistent from a snap by snap basis. And then, extrapolating that out to the third and fourth quarter. If you're on your 80th snap, because college football nowadays, there's so many plays in the game, it's sickening. How many plays there are in a game. You shouldn't be on your 80th snap by the end of the third quarter. And I think that happened for Travis Hunter 3 times this year. That's unreal.
Wow.
And I could be wrong. Feel free to, correct me, find information later.
That could be, because that means that each team has had 40 offensive snaps by the end of the third. Yeah, that's possible.
Yeah. And, well, he played an average of 111 snaps this year. So, just by sheer math standpoint, 30 plays in each quarter, he played some games 120 snaps. It's truly remarkable, the consistent effort and technique. And then, look, he's confident in his long speed. When he plays corner, he's like jumping to the inside often, because and when you do that, you're basically saying, hey, you as the receiver, you can't beat me to the outside deep. I'm going to take away all your options here to the inside. Some would say, oh, he's using the sideline as a defender. No, when he does that, when you do that to a receiver in the first 3 or 4 plays of the game, you're telling him and the opposing team's offensive coordinator,
tried it.
You can't beat me to that other side. And there's, at the high school level, you do that sometimes to, for various reasons, but at that level, the level he's playing at, it just doesn't happen. I don't know that he's going to do that in the NFL, but I think he's a Hall of Fame talent. And I couldn't, I wish I had time to watch college football during the regular season. I don't. I did watch him some, and I was amazed by a lot of things. But the thing that amazed me the most was on the defensive side. in zone, when they're in zone, he had all these different responsibilities. It's not like he was cheating to one side or leaving his zone. He'd play hash defender in a cover 2. He'd play corner in a typical cover 3. He'd play, that crazy stuff they do where the corner drops to be a safety post snap. He's doing all these things, and I found myself thinking, how does he have the time
Keep up with the playbook, even, you're saying.
to keep up with the playbook
Mhm.
for all of the things he's doing? Can he do that in the NFL? It's easy for us to all say no, but here we have a guy who did it for a whole year. I mean, it's a remarkable story that even if you don't like, people don't like Deion Sanders, they don't like Colorado or whatever they don't like, man, appreciate this dude who has a great approach, a great personality, and is apparently just all about the work, man. I just couldn't think higher of him, and my God, having said all of these things, I hope he doesn't end up in Cleveland.
Oh, yes, that would be really bad for the Ravens. I'll come to a hypothetical at the end of this, but I'll give you my Travis Hunter report card here real quickly. Obviously, supremely intriguing two-way player. He's a little bit light, but muscle weighs more than fat. He's should go in the other direction anyway. He has snap coverage per target of 10.4, which I think might be third best in the entire group. Only the two hulking behemoths have lower, have more snaps per coverage target. 5.4 yards per target is good. 4.5 yak per reception is not particularly great. And a missed tackle rate of 14.3% is a little higher than average, but not terrible. Opposition passer rating of 39.9. Now we're getting into the kind of numbers that really matter. One other thing that he did is he did have a few flags, one every 86 snaps, which is more than you'd like. It may be a case that he got tired in some games. I did not try and break down when those were occurring to try and go any further with it. Ball tracking as a wide receiver is unbelievable in terms of its portability of that skill to corner. High points the football very well. Knows where the quarterback wants to throw it a lot of the time, which is a very positive thing. Really good mirror. I thought he's very good at not giving his hips up too early. It's always important for any corner. And the Ravens obviously don't have a chance to get him. He only gave up one play over 23 yards the whole season, a 40-yard touchdown he gave up, but otherwise had 4 picks and 11 other PDs. So he's big-time playmaker. It's not a shortage of ball skills. It's not a shortage of bad opposing quarterback rating. The penalties I guess you could point to, but he is undoubtedly the number one corner and the number one athlete at any position in this draft. So here's my question for you: you'll be much more excited, I assume, if Shedeur Sanders is the Colorado player that the Browns drafted number 2, right?
We should have a party, and that doesn't mean that I have a negative perspective on Shedeur Sanders long term. I'm not willing to offer an opinion here, to be honest with you. I have done some preliminary study of the quarterbacks, but not enough such that I could give an evaluation that I think is responsible. I do have different thoughts on Shedeur Sanders than a lot of other people. Essentially, I feel more positive about him than others. But having said that, if Travis Hunter is not in Cleveland, we should celebrate.
Yeah.
I think, and maybe I'm being hyperbolic or, whatever, however you pronounce that word. I think this is a great football player. Actually, I do have to say, there was times where I felt like, and I actually did put this in my evaluation that I have, where the document that I'll share the link with you, Ken, if you wouldn't mind sharing it. However you do,
I think what we'll do is when I plug the show, I will tag you, and please just attach it to there, and we'll have it right there with the
perfect.
Thing. We'll see it. Yep.
So I'll read out for what I have. I have a Google Doc essentially that lists all the players, and credit to Jen in my Ravens Discord who originally shared this with me. Occasionally, I felt like Hunter was less snappy with his feet, late second quarter into third quarter. But in no way, shape, or form am I saying there was less effort, or that he gears down a little bit earlier on certain pass plays. Additional to that, there was some plays where I felt like late as the game progressed, you lost some explosion. Now, I'll apply a percentage to that lost explosion, and I get it. Some people aren't going to agree with the statement. Anyway, my percentage of lost explosion that I think I could discern was between 3 to 5 or maybe 7%. So you're not talking about, again, the effort is there. This is a person, young man, who is striving to hit a grand slam. He's constantly pushing himself. And so, but the reality is there is a limit at some point whereby you cannot do this. And I think the NFL is going to present that to him at some point. He's not going to play every snap in the NFL on offense and defense.
I think he'll probably be a better corner because of it. And what you're managing, I mean, every one of us manages in some way, usually in a video game. And it might be a video game not even related to sports, where you have to manage your fatigue level relative to something else, say for some sort of combat game or something. It's something that I would think is a very natural result of being a two-way player, is that you're going to want to manage your effort on a play to not take additional steps you don't need to. I think we already see that from a number of other positions. Randy Moss got accused of taking plays off, but Randy Moss did an outstanding freaking job of managing his effort level throughout NFL football games.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I mentioned in my video that I did last night on corners, in anticipation of what I knew that you and I were going to cover here, and also what I'm trying to do leading into the draft, which is I'm trying to cover 100 prospects as best I can, and I don't know if I'll get there. It's going to be close, but in anticipation of all of that, I did a video last night on my YouTube channel where I talked about the top 10 corners. Essentially, I went through all of the players most of the players we're talking about here, and the thing that I would be concerned for Travis Hunter is this: it's not what position he plays. I don't think I think that is a decision an NFL franchise will have to make. But along with that, equal to it in some ways would be, how many snaps do we want to let him play? Mm-hmm. And so what I mean is, if you play defense in the NFL, you're gonna play between 55 and 65 snaps a game, somewhere in that area. If you're a corner who never leaves the field, if you're an outside linebacker or D tackle who rotates some, then you're looking at between 42 and 52 snaps a game, something like that. If you're a starter, some other you're going to get Myles Garrett is a guy as a star who's off the field often. If you look at his snap counts, because he's so bulky, he's got so much up top that the cardio is a real issue. He needs a big engine to drive that vehicle. Travis Hunter, if you ask me, if he's playing 90 snaps a game in the NFL, some combination of offense and defense, my comparison, and you're good with math, so you can grab this and run with it if you want, is over the course of a 4-game stretch, he'd be playing an extra 25, 30 snaps per game.
Then a guy who plays full-time?
Than a guy who plays full-time defense, right? Okay. So to a degree, you're playing an extra game. You're being asked to play an extra game over a 4-game stretch. Now that may not sound like much. Oh, he can do that. He's 21 years old. Extrapolate that out to a 17-game season.
Yeah, I'll say in a 17-game season, I just did a little bit of math here. He'd play the equivalent of about 24.3 games.
Right. So, and I think that, I think he's an alien. I think he's driven, motivated. It sounds like he's been an incredibly focused individual for at least 3 or 4 years. He's the number one player in the country as a junior, and number one player in the country as a senior in high school. Number one player in the country goes to Jackson State, and he's, whatever. He's just a Hall of Fame talent. There does come a point to me at which, as an NFL franchise, you say, we've got this great asset, short term and long term, and it's tempting to play him 90 snaps a game. I think we've got to. Who cares about the offense versus defense? I know what they're going to do. Whoever drafts him, they're going to go full-time corner and part-time receiver. We can't get near that 90 snaps per game number.
Right.
We can't. It's got to be, I would say, 78. And in an extreme situation, we let him get to 80, maybe 82 snaps if we're trying to win the game in the final minute and a half. But under no circumstance can we let him get to 85 plays for the protection of our of ourselves as a franchise and him as a player long term. I just think the risk of wearing him down in injury is too great. I get it. People are going to disagree because he's, he did it last year. 111 snaps a game is obscene, and I'm glad he did it. I don't ever want to see it again.
Right. I mean, I'm with you on that in terms of wanting to have a pitch count you put him on in total. I think the Browns, if they get him, are very disincented to do anything but make him a starting cornerback who they basically say, look, we want to see you adapt to cornerback in the NFL in this first year. We'll expand your role if that all goes well, but you've got to be a good corner before you're anything else. You've been a great corner at the college level. This is a whole nother game on Sunday, and it is. And he'll have to do some things. So they'll have to gauge his effort. They'll have to see how much they can look at his top speed by play now as he goes. They can look at a lot of other factors that we don't have access to from that great big data bowl information they have basically for every play of the season. So I'd be in favor of that. And if you're the Browns, you're not incented to win a lot of football games if your quarterback is coming in 26. You, in fact, want to lose football games. So let's find out if Travis Hunter can play cornerback. But let's not find out too much before 2026 about what a great player he could be on both sides of the ball. And
when I heard, I don't know about you, you can tell me what your reaction was, but when I heard that, the various reports that the Titans were, clearly going Cam Ward, that just, I was like, oh man, that feels like just a gut punch, because that means that there's just no way even the Cleveland Browns can pass on this dude. There's just no way.
I'm not 100% sure that I wouldn't be more bothered by Cam Ward going to the Browns. Admittedly, Cam Ward is a B+ level quarterback for the first round. He's not an A. I think we'd be in agreement on that. I do not want a potential solution falling into the Browns' lap just because they happen to draft second. And as great as Travis Hunter is going to be at cornerback, he ain't going to fix the Cleveland Browns if he doesn't fix their quarterback situation.
Yeah, I don't know what fixes the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah.
But just to think about those moments where you've got a player who makes a game-changing play, he's one of those guys. And another thing that was talked about in our Discord was, what if he had only played I say only, what if he had only played 85 snaps a game at Colorado this past year? Could you have gotten a little bit more? There's got to be a better word than effort. A little bit more ability to give effort on the 85th play, as opposed to the hunt. Man, if you've ever been around anyone listening, or you can, if you've ever been around someone who's a two-way player in high school, I'll never forget one of our best players we ever coached. He played 96 snaps one night in a playoff game, and we lost. Like his 92nd snap of the game, he nearly takes a punt back to the house. And the kid was just incredibly exhausted, 17 years old, great shape. And Travis Hunter's elite conditioning level. I can only imagine the output, the energy output that he had to have. I just don't think he can keep that up in the NFL from that sheer output standpoint.
There's
great
something
player.
else. There's something else that'll happen at the NFL level that's got to be a management of fatigue situation. There's much, much more risk of soft tissue injury, I believe, at the NFL level, because you're going up against athletes who are even a tick above in terms of the speed. You have to keep up with them, and all. Much more risk of flat tires occurring, whether those are hammies or other lower body injuries, so the soft tissue injuries that can occur. And he will be challenged with that. I'm sure, as great as his conditioning is, that he's going to have soft tissue injuries in his career because of a high count.
110%. I mean, when you're playing that many snaps, you just, you're exposing yourself to more opportunities whereby you've done nothing that, quote, deserves an injury. You've done nothing to warrant an injury at all, other than be available to be injured on the field. And like you said, you mentioned it with the quarterback situation they have there. Deshaun, I know Deshaun Watson came in and beat us last year in Baltimore, but they don't have many things handled there in Cleveland at all. He's going to be a guy that he'll bring attention. He'll bring positive attention to their franchise. His approach his clean living style, from what I've read and heard, that's just so much positive energy to Cleveland. He's a unique player, and he's someone that I would root for, except that he ends up with the Browns.
That'll do it for me.
Exactly.
All right. So now we spent a lot of time here. We're running late, but I want you to give me 2 honorable mention players. I'm going to do the same, and just one characteristic you like about these guys, and of 2 players. We'll alternate.
Oh, I can't give just one characteristic for Zah Frazier. You got great ball skills and tremendous athleticism in the same guy. 6 picks in 2024. I think he goes way sooner than the 6th, 7th round projections that he's given right now. I think he's a guy that doesn't make it through the 5th round.
Okay. All right, there's a really good one. I'll take Zy Alexander of LSU. A guy I love. I know you love him too. I wish he could have made my top 10. He's a tall zone corner, reads the quarterback very well. Fine ball skills, limited speed at 4.56, but he's a guy I really love. A lot of ball production at LSU, and looks the part, and did not quite have the same block out the sun ability that the taller corners had in this draft. But I love him nonetheless.
He's a little lighter, right? He's a little thinner, lighter.
196. Yeah.
Yeah. So my other guy is a name that maybe this is similar to your Williams guy from Cal, Bilal Kone from Western Michigan, who I think was at like Indiana State the first couple of years. I didn't even know that Indiana State had a football team. The only thing I know about Indiana State is Larry Bird, obviously.
Yeah.
But Kone is very physical, fast, somewhat similar to a couple of the other corners we talked about, whereby he's just physically imposing. But I think he's only 6'1", like 195, somewhere in that range. I have no idea what the metrics look like, but he's a guy that, to me, when I watched him on film, I was like, okay, he looks like someone that is better than a 6th, 7th round pick to me. But all current projections for him are, UDFA status.
Well, I'll have to look at him. I have not spent time with him, and that's I love it when you come up with a new name that I haven't heard yet. I'll just go to the number 11 guy on my list, and there's a lot of guys, both Kansas quarterbacks, corners I really liked a lot, but Kobe Bryant I probably like more. Very tall, drink of water, looks and plays a lot bigger than 6'0", 180. But that's small now for a cornerback, and after the experience with Emmanuel Forbes that occurred 2 years ago now, I guess there's some I think additional friction to not draft such guys. But I think he looks the part completely. Very rarely do they throw at him. Comes off his own guy to make interceptions a lot, which I absolutely love. Zone ball hawk. He'd be a guy I'd be thrilled to get in the 4th round for the Ravens.
100% with Kobe Bryant. He's one of the first guys that I was pointed to by a couple of people in my Discord, and so no, totally agree. Great ball skills too, and awareness. I agree, and I think that speaks to the depth of this draft, that corner, and overall, and that we're still talking about guys 2 hours and 15 minutes in. Probably 16, 17 names deep between yourself and me, and talented guys that'll be taken off the board by the end of the 4th round or maybe the 5th. That's a good one.
Yeah, I'll tell you right now, my list, the first guy who I've got a 5.6 grade on is Quincy Riley at 16. There are other guys all, I think, get taken by the 5th round, and some more might get taken by the 5th round. So it's a nice deep draft of corners. You mentioned the number, and I forget what it was, who got drafted last year, but it was
last year?
25 out of first
25 out of 176. So, a little bit less than one out of every 7 picks was a corner. What's your perception on what it would be this year through 5 rounds? Let's just do through 5 rounds. If it's 170 picks, 77 picks, 176 picks again, what's your perception on either what the ratio is or just the total number of corners?
I'll work on a total number for you. Okay, so every year I'd say I always am projecting for where the value pick is, and I think there's guys who jump higher because other teams like them. So Ben Mason for the Ravens would be a guy that we would have never projected in the 5th round, but it happens probably less at cornerback, but it still happens that people draft purely for traits. So I'd say if I've got 17 guys I think could be drafted by the end of round 5, then it's probably 20 or 21 will be gone by the end of round 5. That's right. 20 and a half is where I put my over under.
I was around 22. I thought that compared to and the only reason I say I'm using a smaller number than last year by default, or one of the reasons is that you have 2 real outliers from 2024 draft in Steele and Hart with the Chargers.
Mhm.
But that also brings up a unique point with Will Johnson and others is look at the system that those guys played in. And it's, the Ravens, McDonald, Michigan, whatever you want to call it, system. How similar is it? Is it 75% similar? Is it 80% similar? Who knows? But all we know is that certain players on defense play better in that system than they do in other locations. And so Steele and Hart might be the perfect example of guys in the 4th, 5th round who can play well at the NFL level in the right place, in the right spot. They did all that on defense without Asante Samuel, essentially. I don't think this year's draft is as deep at the corner position. I think it's close. 20, 21, 22 sounds about the right number through 5 rounds to me.
Okay. All right, Coach. Incredible pleasure. Every year I look forward to the show I do with you on the draft. I look forward to a show we do during the regular season, usually on defense. One of my favorite conversations of the year always. Tell folks where they can see your work online.
All 22 films on YouTube and also on Twitter or X. I have a Patreon, and the Discord for the Ravens is it's active. And as much as it's hopefully fun for other people who join in, it's a paywall. It's $5 a month. I don't really enjoy promoting myself, but I feel like I have to in order to give this explanation. I will be upfront. As much as it's fun for other people, that group of people, which is like 80 people, 80 at this point, is an asset for me.
Yep.
Because they bring up things for me that points me in a direction. It assists me in getting to a conclusion or a player quicker. So, shout out to those people in there. And again, I'll be done in a moment. As Ken mentioned, if you do link up the draft document that I've made, it was originated by Jen in my Discord. So it makes me better. So I have to give those people a shout out, even though they're joining my Patreon. They've been an asset and a blessing to me at the forefront.
That's so important to recognize the people. None of us who do this to a large degree do it on our own, even if our support comes in the form of taking care of kids or taking care of the dog or whatever it might be. Maureen does an amazing amount of work for me. I appreciate her no end. And we're going to try and have her on draft night to talk a little football with us. She has definitely a love for Notre Dame, and hopefully that'll fly. The other thing I really want to thank people for is I put out a little thing on Twitter today to have some help making some visualizations for the cornerback position, and it had 4 people immediately jump to the front and say, "Hey, I can do it for you," kind of thing. That's wonderful. I just want to say, if anybody needs help or think they need help getting started on how to do an analytics study, hit me up. First of all, I'd love to have you on the show to describe your own work. But second of all, if you want any help from a mathematician's perspective of where's a good place to think about starting with some kind of things or move forward, more than happy to help and put in time on it. It's what I love to do. So, Coach, appreciate having you on again.
Thanks, man. It's a lot of fun. Hopefully next year when we do this, we're talking about the Ravens drafting at 32.
32. There you go. All right. We'll talk to you next time on Film Study.